Ready. Let's see if it's actually recording finally. Continue that last video of, kind people don't exist, only kind acts do, as I ramble and I've become more and more disillusioned with the world. I want to talk about this from a sexual and just relationship perspective between man and woman, boy, girl, whatever you want to call it. But to add to a point I forgot to mention in that last video, but I put in the comments, right? Another point I wanted to mention in that video was maybe we generally only think of true kindness from someone when that person is older, the grandpa or the grandma. And maybe the only reason that they are kind from a certain perspective is because their life is over. They have no value in life anymore. The only mark that they can leave on this world now is to leave it a better place if they are kind, right? You know what I mean? So if you find someone who is young, when they have their whole life ahead of them, it's weird and it's really rare because they have more to offer to the world than just leaving it a better place, right? And maybe that's one of the reasons that I'm the way that I am, because having the bad life that I've had when I was growing up and then, being sick and wondering how long I'm going to be alive, I've wondered how I can leave the world a better place, right? Even at a young age, I guess. Of course, I was poisoned from anime and all this kind of shit, but I want to talk about, people not actually caring about each other, maybe from a sexual and relationship perspective. And this is going to be some topics that I've talked about before on the channel, but, I was thinking about it again recently because of that situation I had with this girl in Japan, right? We're on the bed, we're getting ready, doing our thing, right? But before, we start going all the way, I just asked her, it wasn't anything like, oh, can I kiss you? We're past that point, It was just like, hey, if you don't want to do anything, remember, just let me know. And I'm expecting like a or just like a nod kind of thing, right? Like look in the eyes, But I got such an extreme reaction. I got, boom, tears, booger tears. Like she was not expecting that level of empathy, right? And I still remember she's on top of me. She's like covering I'm making a motion with my hand. You can't see me because I still have no webcam right now. But, she had her hand over my mouth while boogers were coming out and tears like covering me. And I'm like, whoa, such an extreme reaction, right? And I think you could say, from a certain perspective, though, there's different levels of empathy, right? Like, oh, you are empathetic on the level that you ask her if it's okay or not. Just let me know if you don't want to do something we're about to do and it's okay. But if you're truly empathetic, you would have known that she's already here. You know what she's here for, right? In a lot of these sexual encounters, and what I'm going to talk about, you realize more and more that people don't care about each other. You're not there to see if the person cares about you. You're just there to get fucked and have a good time and feel good, right? And I even talked to other people, and they used this one girl, she used the phrase that I had ruined her innocence by even asking her that, right? Which is kind of a funny way to put it, right? So there's different levels of empathy. Like maybe, it's like maybe I really was fucked up. She's like, she's there, We both know why she's there. You don't need to ask, right? Don't make her start thinking about this or be nice and it ruins the moment, because most people don't care about each other, right? And that ruins it. Like the actual act of empathy in that situation would have been like, hey, we both know why we're here. We're not in love. After we do everything, we can say, how are you? How was your day? You know what I mean? Are you okay? Let's look at some memes, whatever, dude. But so you could say that I was maybe not empathetic in that situation, maybe, if you're being totally negative, right? I was definitely too kind. I shouldn't have done that. But, I definitely have talked about before, I overdosed on the red pill when I was very young, unfortunately. I saw my mom using men, you know what I mean? I saw the power of like a woman and how she could use a man, just manipulate people, right? And I also grew up unpopular and I saw how girls treated me. And then I, quotation marks, became cool. Then all those girls that hated me, they suddenly liked me. Then I was sick. These girls didn't care about me when I'm dying in the hospital. Oh, then I'm cool again. Then these girls like me, right? And I've seen how, people treat people, right? That people don't really care about each other, even if they would have sex with you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this person has tried, they like me. I've lived I've always said that, I was overdosed on the red pill. I think you should be given a little bit of the red pill to see how the world works, but I was given such an overdose of the red pill, seeing the way that people treat each other. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, maybe people just don't care about each other, right? Even people that supposedly like you, you know? And I've had this weird problem that, when I'm like attracted to someone, I definitely get into this thing that's definitely like a flaw for me. Like, I'm still insecure, but I get this feel like a lot of times, like, you know what I mean? Before I have sex with somebody, I want to know that they're like a good person, right? Before I do something, right? But then I run into this problem. If I get to know the person too much, then you can't objectify the person in the same way, right? Do you know what I mean? Because it can ruin the spontaneity. And I do have that problem of, I want to believe that people actually care about each other. And it's a problem I've always had in my life, right? And I've tried to get over it. I have tried to get over it, and I still try to get over it. And I try to get over it in different kind of ways, from my pictures being stolen on the internet for so long now, before it was even called catfishing, right? I'm still shocked that even to this day that some people think I'm cool enough to steal my pictures, right? But, even on these like international dating sites, basically, where my pictures have been stolen, right? I see that you basically, to talk to people, it doesn't matter what country, what culture, you really do. You basically got to flirt with someone almost most of the time, or else they won't even talk to you. Because it's weird to care about somebody, right? And I definitely feel like it almost, I don't know I'm not sure if this is the exact kind of terminology you would use it, like, not like a sociopath or something like that, but sometimes I definitely feel like, man, I got to be more flirty than I feel like I want to be right now. I got to start flirting. Like, I've been really sick lately, and I was talking to this random girl recently, and I was like, oh man, I gotta be a little bit more flirty right now. You know what I mean? But I was so tired, I couldn't even do it. But the point is, sometimes I feel like, man, I gotta be a little bit more sexual, a little bit more flirty. And I do have a small female audience, and that's not to say that every time I flirt with somebody, it's fake, but I definitely feel like there are times that it's almost like, man, I gotta see, it's like I gotta flirt a little bit with people. I gotta like be a little bit sexual. And that's not that, it's not that I'm not like a fun person or I'm not flirty whatsoever, but maybe to a greater extent than maybe I would actually go through with sometimes. It's like, I got to be a little bit more flirty, a little bit more playful, because I know the people won't actually talk to people unless you're a little bit flirty. And maybe that's normal, because why would you? Maybe, right? But again, I've seen that doesn't matter the culture, doesn't matter the person, religion, whatever. You actually do, it's almost like, not that I'm like using people or I'm being malicious, but it's almost sometimes like I got to flirt with this person to get to know them a little and then see where it goes, I guess. You know what I mean? Even if the flirting is somewhat half-hearted, maybe sometimes real, but, somewhat half-hearted maybe. Excuse me. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but sometimes it's like, how should I explain this? Sometimes I'll try to like objectifying doesn't necessarily always have to be bad, but sometimes I'll just try to focus on one thing, and I'll be like, okay, she has big lips. I can focus on that. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to be a little bit more flirty than I care. You know what I mean? Oh man, that sounds really terrible, right? You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm going to be a little bit more flirty because I want to know this person. I don't know. It's like I'm saying it right now, and it's part of me. I don't know. It's weird. Like I just am becoming more and more disillusioned with the idea that anybody cares about each other. And especially when I think about sexually, again, because it's like, I regret turning down so many people because I just want to believe people care about each other. And, being poisoned growing up, being so religious, and I think just society too. Society definitely poisoned me as well. You think about like, oh, you shouldn't objectify women or something like that. And it's like people objectify people, period. But objectifying someone is not necessarily negative, like the world tries to tell you. If you can't objectify your partner, it's not going to work at all, right? And I've definitely experienced that where I don't feel that, like I said, it's almost like a character flaw. Like if I can't objectify the person I'm with, if I start to care about them too much, there's no sexual attraction almost, because I almost know deep down that they don't care about. People just generally aren't nice. It's weird. It's like kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, catch 22, whatever, I guess. You know, and of course, you know, I feel like even years and years ago, you know, you grow up and you hear like, oh, porno isn't real in real life. And I feel like years and years and years ago, even I was like, man, I can tell you, if you have a lot of girlfriends or people that you talk to, man, you know, if you have honest conversations with people, you know what I mean? I feel like the stories that some girls tell me, more crazy than anything that I've ever seen in any porno that I've ever seen personally. You know what I mean? The stuff that, and some of them are pretty hot. Like I could tell you some really not PC legal sounding stories that some girls are just super into, right? And I guess that's maybe, you know, one of the, you know, fantasies in general. You know what I mean? People like the fantasy of doing something naughty, but in a safe way, right? But some stories for sure, especially, you know, if you grow up and, you know, you're naive about the way the world works. You know, the stories goes like, man, that is very fucking kinky. I was like, I wish I could tell you some of the stories that some girls tell me, but they don't sound safe for fucking YouTube, dude. And I'm like, whoa. And you hear about the stories that like, man, especially, I guess I can't even say some of the stories. My videos would definitely be flagged. And I'm just like, man, really? And they're like, oh yeah. They're like, I fucking love that. That's what I need. And like, I wish someone would have been doing that to me, you know, at that, you know, it's just like, whoa, it's like, damn, okay. You know, it's weird, but, you know, it also made me think of Japan too. And I talked about the double-edged sword of Japan. Japan is so crazy when you see like, you know, that red light district, so-called Japan. You see Japan, these old dudes with very young girls, legal in Japan, but right, you know what I mean? And, you know, right in front of the police and everything like that. And, you know, I'm looking at it and, you know, you talk to foreigners, Japanese people, you know, not foreigners, but, you know, people living there. And you get that sort of, you know, vibe, and it's like, no one is hurting anybody. As long as you aren't hurting anybody, Japan has that vibe of, you know, as long as you aren't hurting anybody, just let people do what they want to do. And from that perspective, maybe it's almost sad, depending on how you're looking at it, but I appreciate it because although I don't think that most people don't care about each other, I would still like to believe in my heart that most people aren't malicious, right? Most people are not maliciously doing something wrong to hurt somebody. And so from that perspective, when you look at some of the sex culture in Japan, and you're like, okay, and you're like, I guess it's just Japan's like, hey, no one's hurting anybody. They both know what they're there for. You know what I mean? People just want to have fun. Japan, very kind of like, you know, it depends on your perspective, but there's a perspective that I could see that I could appreciate it, right? Whereas, and of course, you know, we have these American cultures or something like that, you know, like, oh, so holier than thou. We don't like any of this shit, but then, you know, behind closed door, we all know what fucking happens, right? Or, you know, God, I've never been to South America, but man, you hear about the stuff in South America, you know, if you're not having sex very early on, you're seen as weird, right? You know what I mean? I said, I forget if I told this story. I probably have, because I'm such a fucking, you know, honest to a fault kind of person, right? I think she's from Argentina, and she's like, one of the biggest culture shocks for me, she's like, when I came to America when I was younger, is in Argentina or whatever, we're all having sex very early on, right? But nobody says we're boyfriend, girlfriend. That's very serious. But when I got to America, people didn't want to say that they were having sex, but everyone was boyfriend, girlfriend, and that they loved each other. And she was like, it was very weird. You know what I mean? It was like the exact opposite. And I guess it's like the America, the holier than thou kind of thing. And then you realize, but people don't care about each other in America either, right? And so I guess that again, the perspective is maybe it's sad too, right? But it's like a red pill, but it's like a red pill too. And it's like, man, people don't care about each other, you know? Just have fun. If you're having fun in a safe way, no one's getting hurt, mind your own business kind of thing, right? I don't know. It's weird. And I try to tell myself, maybe in a way I try to tell myself it because, you think about the mistakes you've made and you try to like console yourself. But it's weird because I've never lived, I don't think I've ever really lived life, so to speak, because my health will not allow me. You know what I mean? But at that same time, I've had a long shelf life, so to speak, in terms of being strangely popular with girls, right? And it's weird. And I've seen, I've the shelf life that I've had, I've seen people that have liked me that have become old, that their life is over, so to speak. Their shelf life is over, so to speak. And they're not popular anymore. And all of a sudden their opinion changes, like, oh, or blah, blah, blah. Or maybe their opinion changes, but if you have like an honest conversation with them, you know what I mean? They're like, oh God, I wish I could still do it, blah, 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 whatever. I wish people still looked at me that way. I want to be young again. I want to do crazy shit. I want to be desired like that. And the shelf life thing is just because I've seen people, it hasn't changed in all my years on this planet, so to speak. I've seen every country, every, demographic. I'm not surprised, I guess, right? I don't know. So the disillusion, I guess, of that nothing means anything, right? There's no point in anything, right? And like I said, I feel like sometimes it's weird, like I said, because sometimes it feels like, man, I just feel it's so weird because you're told these things are wrong when you're younger. And I always think like, but how do you actually tell somebody growing up that the things you're telling them that are wrong are not actually real in real life, I feel like, right? And the only times that people say that it's like that in real life, a lot of times these people are the most shady or the most, man, they do the most fucked up shit, right? It's fake, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, just, as I become more and more disillusioned with the meaning of living, I guess, there's no point in anything. Oh well, if you like this, like, sub, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.